episode of Roll or Die. Today we have another OG for you. His name is Denis Kelly. He is a third-degree black belt. Is that right?
Second degree black belt, but I've been a black belt since 2012, but I just didn't. It took me a few years to get the paperwork all sorted out, so I'm a bit behind schedule with it.
Yep. And you're the head coach at Australian Combat Sports Academy here in Melbourne.
Yep.
Thanks for joining us, Denis.
Okay, thanks for having me on. Thank you.
Man. Are you the long lost brother of Daniel Kelly, the ex-UFC?
Nah, no relation. Yeah, People get that mixed up a lot, but yeah, no relation there.
Cool, man. And that's a bit of an Irish accent going on there, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yes, I'm from Donegal, so I lived there until I was 18, and then lived a few other places since then.
Wow.
What brought you to Australia?
So I was living in London for 10 years before I moved here, and then I met my wife over there, and then she decided to move back here. So then I came along with her, and I've been here ever since. So I think I got here 2007. So yeah, that's kind of how I ended up here.
Wow, man. What are your thoughts? Have you settled in yet?
Yeah. It took me a little while. I think the first thing was just like the time difference. And then once I got used to the time difference, and that was all right. So it didn't take me long to settle in. Yeah, but I've loved it. Yeah, I love it here. So yeah, it's it feels like home now.
So tell us how you discovered Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. That was back home in Ireland, I take it?
Nah, that was actually, so I started off doing karate. So I've been training karate, or I started training karate since 1993. And probably like maybe a few months after I started doing karate, I saw the first ever UFC, like a little clip of it on TV. And I thought, that looks pretty cool. And they were showing like Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. It actually looked a bit scary at first. I think it was kind of like more of to make it look scary.
Yeah.
But back then, even in so I actually moved to London, as I said, I think 97, 98, and there was no BJJ there. It took like another 2 or 3 years before there was any jiu-jitsu. And I actually, the first ever Brazilian instructor who started teaching BJJ in London, I was actually there on the day when he was putting up flyers at the Budokai dojo in London. So that was like, I think that was like 1998, and he was actually there putting up the flyers, and BJJ class is going to start here like in 2 weeks time. And then he was basically everybody else who did who was the first generation of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu students in the UK. They all sort of started with him, and then they all kind of branched off in different directions. So that's going back a bit.
What belt was he? Do you remember?
So I actually didn't get to train with him. I was actually just there doing like a traditional jiu-jitsu, so like the traditional Japanese jiu-jitsu grading. And he was a black belt, but he was only there for a little while, I think, and then he moved to another country. But basically, then not long after that, Roger Gracie's dad, Mauricio Gomez, arrived in London and started teaching. So everybody would go down to do a session with him every Monday night, and then it grew from there. So that's how it all started over there.
That's epic.
Wow. Fantastic. So have you got other, besides the karate, have you got other martial arts as well in your background?
Yeah. So I obviously now I'm pretty much like 90% just teaching Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. But yeah, I've dabbled in a whole lot of things. So I did karate for a while. I also did judo, got my black belt in judo. I competed in Muay Thai, boxing. I actually didn't compete in boxing. I did a lot of training in boxing, but like came close to competing in it, but it never quite worked out. Then had a lot of MMA experience as well. Had 16 pro MMA fights and a whole bunch of amateur MMA fights. But now it's pretty much all just kind of, ever since we opened the gym, we found that the jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai kind of thing has really taken off. So I've been more kind of focused on jiu-jitsu, and then my business partner Phil has kind of taken over the striking side of it. So I still do quite a lot of striking. I do like personal training sessions for people where we focus on striking, and I help out with the MMA fighters and stuff. But no, it's predominantly jiu-jitsu.
So what's growing faster? I'm interested. Like I know that MMA was on the rise for a while, and it seemed like everybody wanted to take MMA classes, but it kind of feels like that settled down a bit. I might be wrong, but I'm interested to know from a gym owner's perspective. Is it like now people are back to just not wanting to get punched in the face as much anymore, and they're back to like doing Muay Thai classes and doing BJJ classes instead? Is that from a
well, I mean, like it's an interesting thing because I mean I've been doing, because I've been involved in it for so long. So I actually, even before I started doing BJJ, I was kind of involved in MMA. Like I was training with MMA fighters. There wasn't too many MMA fights around back then. But yeah, basically in my experience, like MMA is always going to be popular as a spectator sport, but it's not really too much of a participation sport. So people like the idea of training at an MMA gym, but you probably don't get too many people who, they come in and, maybe they watch UFC in the weekend, but I would say like 99% of the people just want to do either kickboxing or they want to do jiu-jitsu. They don't really want to combine it too much because it just takes, too long. You have to put in too many hours in a week to get good at both of them. And, most people don't really have that many hours in the week. So yeah, it's only a very small minority of people that really want to do MMA properly. So, and I mean, I think I haven't really seen that change much over the years as well. Even though MMA's got more popular, it's always it always works out the same where, most people, they want to do it every now and again, but they're probably going to end up drifting towards one or the other.
Yeah, got it.
And Denis, you have your own MMA show. Is that right?
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Okay, so we started, basically did our first show last year, at the end of November. I think it's the end of November last year. So we've been running amateur MMA events at our gym, Australian Combat Sports Academy, for I think on and off for the last 2 or 3 years. So we had to cancel a few of them or postpone them because of the lockdowns and stuff. But that had been going really well. So the events that we do at the gym, we don't allow head strikes. So it's like obviously a mixture of, it's still full contact, but there's no kicking or punching to the head, no strikes to the head. So it's a lot safer. People can have 2 or 3 matches on one day, and it's a good way to gain experience and stuff. And then I think during the, I think a lot of people were saying, you got, this is running really well and it was well organized. Everybody had a good experience. So people are asking like, are you gonna, run a bigger show, like a nighttime event with like, full rules in the cage? And at first I wasn't really that interested in doing that because I just thought there's already quite a lot of other, amateur MMA events around. I felt like you don't really want to, as I said, there's not that many fighters. You kind of crowd in the market a little bit too much. But I think during the lockdown, I just got bored of being at home. So I thought like as a new project, I'll just learn how to do something new. So figured out how to organize and promote an MMA show. It's been really good. So we've done 2 events so far. We've got our next one coming up in the end of July.
I think I'm on your website right now. Is this your promotion?
So that's that's actually our in-house Muay Thai inter-club. But I think, let me see, if you look up ACSA Bushido, I think it should come up there, ACSA Bushido. And then let's see what comes up.
Bushido, in Melbourne.
I actually scrolled on to where I think it's like the 4th one down, and it's his image. Go up a little bit, up, and it's see, it's right there. That's the one. Yeah.
Great.
Cool. Yeah, so that's the promo for the next event, which is coming up 30th of July. Yeah, so I've actually just confirmed 5 of the matchups for it today. So we're gonna announce them next week. So yeah, it's looking to should be a really good one.
This is great. So unique background, fighters and coaches, fought and coached fighters at events all around the world. We feel we can make a few changes will make a big difference to the experience for the fighters and the fans. A visual.
Yeah. So
Yeah, you go.
yeah. So one of the things we kind of wanted to do with it is make it. So obviously it's the same rules. It's like for pro MMA, it's the same rules as like the UFC and anything else. But we just wanted to make it kind of more about martial arts, more about the actual, kind of traditional martial arts, bringing that side back into it rather than just, the Conor McGregor trash talking and, throwing beer cans at each other. So we want to try to move away from that. Yeah.
Come on, man. I could insert some Irish jokes here, man. But you guys love a good pub fight, but
Yeah. But nah, I suppose you need a little bit of that, but we sort of think like, we can kind of like move in a different direction from that.
Yeah, great. I love it, man. I love it. Actually, do you mind if we take a look at this video?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, that second one is really good. Yep.
Okay, great. Awesome. Hopefully the sound comes.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Bushido Fight Night! We have got a stacked lineup with some of the hottest young mixed martial arts talent that Australia has to offer. With your winner, fighter Tom Andrew.
Yes, I don't know if it's coming out a bit blurry, but maybe that's just via Zoom. Maybe it'll be better in the.
That's good, man. That's good. It's good being on my screen. What have you learned for putting on events? What surprised you? What happened that you expected? Talk a bit about like the whole event kind of thing.
Yeah, well, it's been really interesting. Like I'd say it's as I said, it was because obviously during the lockdowns the gym was closed, didn't really have too much to do. I was at home kind of doing a little bit of homeschooling with my kids, but still got a lot of free time. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it was a really good learning experience. But yeah, I think it's interesting, because I've seen kind of so many sides of the sport now. So I've gone from just being a fan and then being a fighter, having the experience of being a fighter, and then after that moved into being a coach, and now I've got seeing the other side of it as being a promoter. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's been like I sort of thought like that I wouldn't really enjoy promoting events, to be honest, before I started doing it, but now I actually do enjoy it, and I like the fact that I think it's been really good working with a lot of the fighters, and you can see how hard they're training for it and like how much it means to them. And I mean, I suppose the one thing I kind of take away from it is like, why I probably wouldn't, probably be the most successful promoter is because I don't really like to see any of the fighters losing. So it's not going to be a good show if nobody loses, because somebody has to win, someone has to lose. But you see how hard they've worked, and you see that they've made all the effort, they've cut weight, they've got into the thing, and then you see and even like, I know there's a few guys who took fights at last minute, and they've gone in there, they've done everything right. So you almost want to see everybody winning.
Yeah.
But then I think even the people who don't win, I think they probably still benefit from it. Like even, we've had guys who they've lost their fight, but they just had such a good experience with our show that they were just like, can you get me back on? I want to get back on the next one. So that's been really rewarding, I think, because that's something that I think I didn't really get that a lot with a lot of my fights. I sort of felt like I'm doing it. It's a kind of a scary experience, especially back in those days. MMA was sort of almost like an underground sport, and you couldn't really even tell people what you were doing or who you were fighting or where you're going or anything.
Yeah.
And I sort of felt sometimes I would put all this effort into getting ready, having a fight, and then you'd win, and then the promoter it didn't really mean anything to them. It was just money. You was just like collecting tickets or whatever. So whereas like, obviously to me, it's been such a big part of my life. So I want to make sure the fighters who are in there, that they get treated properly, that they have a good experience, that they get looked after, and then that makes them want to come back and do it again. So yeah,
that really hits home for me. Like I think for someone to be kind of treated like a piece of meat after, you know, they're putting all of that effort, not in your experience, but in your past life, and you know,
yeah.
And I know that this is a horrible correlation, right? But I'm going to say it because I've never said it on this show, and it's just something which has always been there for me. And I really see that at one stage, fighting was the male equivalent of being a stripper. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was like you are like there for people's viewing pleasure, and you don't get treated well, and you don't get paid well, and it's something that you can go to if there's nothing else. I mean, obviously there were obviously people who are not that at all times as well in those areas, but that's what my view of fighting was at some stage. Do you think that that's a valid correlation?
Yeah, I think it is. It's kind of along those lines. I mean, for me, it was always, I think it was a bit different because I always had like, I never really made any money from fighting. I always had like a full-time job, and I was just doing it in my extra time.
Right.
But I think in some ways, maybe that makes it even worse because I was doing it for kind of like, you know, I'd always been involved in martial arts, and I just saw like fighting as a way to test your martial arts, to test your skills, to improve. And it's like a kind of a, you know, it's a kind of a deep thing for me. But then when you see that the people who are promoting, they're not really that bothered about it. They're just doing it to make a little bit of money or to, you know, whatever the reasons are. So I think there's a big difference between the motivations of the fighters sometimes and then the motivations of the people who are behind the sport. So and then when the two things don't line up, that's where people get upset. So
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
And Dennis, speaking about your past life or your time as a fighter, you won the Vic MMA title against Banjo Patterson. Anton, I've just sent you the link of it. I don't know, Dennis, are you happy for us to share?
Yeah. I don't know. Is that a video or yeah, I don't mind. Yeah, you can. Yeah, that was my last fight, which was I think 2009. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. So you sent it to me on Facebook, Kim?
Yeah.
Loading it up.
We're a very professional unit here, Dennis, as you can see. Very.
Sounds good.
Andrew Patterson, isn't he like a poet or something?
That's his
I think that's where he got his nickname from.
Right. All right, just loading that up, man.
Yeah. So tell us about that. So 2009. So it has been a while, I guess. Yeah, since your last bout.
Yeah. So that was actually my only fight that I had in Victoria, because I had most of my fights back in the UK. I had one in Italy. Then when I came to I moved to Australia in 2007, and I had pretty much given up on MMA. I didn't really think I was going to fight anymore. And then when I actually came to Victoria, I didn't realize, but it turned out that there was no MMA here anyway, because the cage was banned. I think there had been maybe two or three MMA fights in a ring in the last couple of years before that, but there was basically no MMA scene, so it kind of worked out that but then eventually I managed to have I had one fight in New Zealand after that, then had a few more around Australia, kind of got back into it. I fought some really good guys, fought a few guys that then went down to UFC. I fought Adrian Pang right before I fought Nicholas there. So I mean, I had a bit of a mixed record, but I always wanted to test myself. So it was always like, I wanted to fight the best people that I could find every time, rather than, like I never really saw it as a career where I'm trying to, build up my record and make money. It was always just, I want to test myself. And I think a lot of it as well was that I was always sort of worried that, what if I get really badly injured? I don't want to have too many fights and get really badly injured and whatever. So I always thought this fight's going to be my last. So I want to make sure it's a good test. Ended up having, I think, 16 kind of proper fights all up. And then obviously competed in a lot of other combat sports as well.
Yeah, and what's the feeling like when you're like facing up against someone? Like I don't know what it's like to be properly punched in the head. I've got to say, especially not with 4-ounce gloves. Like we've got that beautiful hybrid of they can punch you many times without really hurting their hand, and also there's not much protection. Like what is the experience of eating punches like for people who don't understand? Like, what's your memory of it?
I don't know. I think it's probably different for everybody. I mean, personally speaking, I always sort of found that when I was in the fight, basically I didn't feel anything. Like you're just kind of zoned out, and you don't really feel. You kind of notice like, this punch is getting through, that punch is getting through. But in terms of actually feeling the impact from them, there was no, it wasn't really something that I noticed too much. Actually, with my very first proper MMA fight, I got, completely knocked out cold, concussed, and I couldn't remember. I had like total loss of memory for like maybe a good few hours after that. I didn't remember where I was, who I was there with, who my coaches were, anything, what I was doing. And it took me about like a day to recover from that. Yeah. But even during that fight, I don't actually remember like the impact of the punches. I just remember, like I'm getting hit a lot. I got to try to take this guy down. And then I'm still getting hit. I got to try to take him down. And that going through your mind, and then just waking up and not knowing what had happened. So,
wow. Yeah. Wow.
But then I think that was actually
a little ahead here, Anton. This is like a 20-minute.
Yeah. This fight goes on for quite a while. Yeah.
Looks like a matchup. It looks like you guys are, really going for it. There's a lot of fast-paced action, that's for sure.
Yeah. So Nick actually he went on a really good run after that. And as far as I understand, I'm never sure if I get this story right, but I think Hex was actually he was the main event of the first few Hex events. And they were sort of building the promotion around him to get him to the UFC. He went on. I think he might have beat 3 or 4 UFC veterans immediately after this fight. So he did pretty well.
And bring it back to like jiu-jitsu, like how much was jiu-jitsu a part of your game? Like how much did that impact you? How much time did you spend training that? Obviously you get some judo.
Yeah. So like I always sort of thought that I never really considered myself like 100% kind of jiu-jitsu BJJ person. I always like to think of myself as like a well-rounded martial artist, and I just thought that I need to, if you're going to be well-rounded, you need to learn how to fight on the ground as well, and obviously jiu-jitsu is the best for that. But throughout most of my fight career, I was training at the Carlson Gracie dojo in London. And obviously they were way ahead of everybody in terms of jiu-jitsu. So I think when I would go to fight, have my fights around different places in the UK, our standard of ground fighting would obviously be much like, usually have a big advantage on the ground of a lot of people. So I kind of gradually gravitated more towards that rather than, I actually remember like with a lot of my MMA fights being in the changing room and thinking, all right, this fight, I'm really going to try out my stand-up, try trade punches and work. And then just as it gets closer to the time, sort of chickening out and thinking, I'm just going to take him down and try to arm lock him because I'm confident that will, and then I'll do more stand-up training before the next time. But so jiu-jitsu was always a big part of it for me. Yes, and I think even though I love striking and takedowns and stuff as well, I think that I'm probably more of a natural grappler and ground fighter than I am of a striker. So
yeah, right.
This guy, your opponent, is really geeing up the crowd in this match.
Yeah. He's a fan favorite. He always brought a lot of people along to watch. So.
Does that mean they booed you? Were you the guy that the crowd boos? Like, were you the bad guy?
Well, I can't remember if they boo me, but you always know if you get put into the bad changing room. So at that venue, like they've got one good warm-up area, which is like, huge. It's like almost like a indoor football pitch size. And then they've got like one little tiny upstairs changing room. So they stuck me into the upstairs changing room with all the other blue corner people that they want to lose. So I think that's why he was the fan favorite.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so that's one of the things we try to do with our show is that with Bushido Fight Night is like everybody gets the same amount of space to warm up and prepare in. So there's no favoritism.
And do you tell the crowd not to favor one person over the other as well? Or do you still allow crowd favors?
Nah, I'm not really because you know, obviously people just sell, like if one guy sells a lot of tickets, he's obviously gonna have a lot more you know, he's gonna have a lot more of his supporters along. But yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like
Did this go to a judge's decision, Dennis, or?
Yeah, so it went to decision at the end.
Thanks a lot. 20 minutes of hardcore fighting, man. That's amazing.
It is.
What do you do for recovery? I'm actually trying this stuff at the moment. CBD oil, right? People are swearing by it, so I thought I'll try it. It's not like there's no THC in it, so you don't get high. But I'm experimenting with it, and it tastes interesting. But you know, it's meant to be really good for muscle recovery and anxiety and all that sort of stuff. But what do you do for recovery? What's your thing? What's your?
I don't know. I've never really been. I think that's probably been the one part of my training that I've never really been good at. I've been good. Like I've never really had a problem with motivating myself to turn up and train hard. And you know, like you know, sometimes people go for a long time without training, or they're a bit up and down with it. But like I've always been good with that. But the actual and remembering to take, like even stuff like, you know, reminding myself to take a protein shake or something. I'm real bad at remembering that kind of stuff. So I notice if I do take protein shakes, then after, you know, the next day you've recovered much more.
Yeah.
But yeah, usually I forget about it and then just go straight through to the next training session.
Yeah.
Don't take that advice, listeners. That's not the way. And Dennis, tell us a bit more about the Australian Combat Sports Academy, like your gym. Like, how did it get started? How did you like get it off the ground?
And before you do, look at this ground and pound, by the way. This is
sorry, I'm missing the best part.
Just wailing this guy.
It's just it's a real bad camera angle for it. It was actually but yeah, there was a lot of shots landing there.
That's awesome, man. Because up until now, it felt like, you know, maybe he had the slight advantage, but it looks like you were showing him, exacting some revenge in that moment.
He's really tough. He's like you know, pretty hard to do anything to.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Sorry, do go on with Kim's question, brother.
Oh yeah. Okay. So how the gym. So basically, when I first moved to Australia, which was 2007, I met my business partner now, Phil, who runs the gym together with me. We actually met at a Muay Thai gym. So when I first moved to Australia, I was kind of like, I was still planning to do BJJ, but for I don't know, for whatever reason, I kept getting injured every time I go to jiu-jitsu club, do a few classes, and end up like injuring my knee or whatever.
Maybe no recovery, huh?
I think it was recovery, but I think that I had kind of gone, probably for the first time ever, I think I went for a few months without training too much. Yeah. And then I tried to go back into it too quickly, and I just found every time I do jiu-jitsu, I'm getting injured. But then I was also doing a little bit of Muay Thai training, and then I just decided to focus more on the Muay Thai. I thought I'm not really getting injured when I'm doing it, and this is a good chance to really you know, improve myself in that area. And I think I'd just come back from 2 trips to Thailand before coming to Australia as well. So I really focused on that. And then at the Muay Thai gym that I was training at, the coach sort of was asking like if I wanted to teach a little bit of MMA and jiu-jitsu there. So then I started teaching small groups of people who had like a little bit of interest in MMA, and eventually just grew up from there. So then I think I was doing that like maybe once or twice a week, and then the numbers just grew. We moved to teaching then I think 2 days a week at another location, and then the numbers grew again. So then eventually we got our first full-time gym, and then that was actually called Team Nemesis. And at the beginning, we were more focused on just on MMA rather than jiu-jitsu, so MMA and Muay Thai. And basically everybody that came to train with us just wanted to be MMA fighters. But as I mentioned at the start, you don't really, it doesn't add up to being too many people. So over the years, then we've kind of gradually drifted into more like separating like Muay Thai, boxing, and Jiu Jitsu. And once we did that, then the numbers just really grew. So now we've got quite a lot of members because we sort of split it up a bit. But we still do have quite a few like active MMA fighters as well. But we just find that they can benefit from training both things, and then we do separate sessions where they combine everything together.
That's brilliant, man. I just saw this, so I just thought I'd pause it. Like I don't know what your views are on this, right? But as like looking back, and it's obviously a while ago, but in this situation, this sweep that happens here, like you go to put the knee over the arm and your head's on this side. So it looks to me like your base is good, right?
Yeah.
Maybe your hips are high, but maybe you can talk us through how this guy ends up in this position, like converting this where you're in such a dominant position to that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's interesting. Like, the thing with Nick as well, I think he was actually a competitive powerlifter before switching to MMA as well.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's the thing. There's a lot of textbook jiu-jitsu things that will work against 99% of the population, and then you try them out against someone that's like super strong, and they're just not going to work. But that's good. I mean, it's good to know that as well, because it's better to find it out in training or in a controlled environment than to find it out like in the middle of the night in the streets. So
that's true. Well, Kim's partner Theo, he's a white belt, right? I'm rolling with this guy, and he literally just bench presses. He's a power lifter. He just bench presses me off him whenever he wants. It's like ridiculous feeling to be bench pressed in the middle of a roll.
He's also the editor of this podcast, so we'll have to make him sound good.
Now there's definitely some people that are just super strong, but I mean, it's like, I suppose it's got its disadvantages as well, because if you're strong, you probably become a little bit reliant on it, and then your technique might suffer as a result of that. So it's good. It's good to be aware of it, but it's also good to like have the technique to back it up.
Yeah. And in the interest of you not wanting to see a winner or a loser ever, should I close this video now, or should I play this part?
I don't know. Yeah, I think I've already given away the result anyway earlier on. So
it was a good. I can't believe you guys went. Like there's a long time. Like
3 rounds. Yeah.
Battle. It's amazing. Like and that's another thing. Like how do you just like? It seems like such a lot of work in MMA fight. Like I just don't even understand how people kind of get through that. Is there any tips you've got for people like going long rounds or going long? Like, what do you do? Like, how do you prepare for something like this?
Well, I think a lot of it really, I mean, the fitness is a big part of it, but I think it comes down to like mental strength as well, or like mental kind of preparation, like knowing that, because no matter how good your technique is, it's gonna crack at a certain point, or like once it's put under enough pressure. So just knowing that, I think you have to push yourself really hard in training. You have to, I think it's stuff that I've learned more about as I've become a coach as well, that you pretty much have to get, I wouldn't say beat up to the point where you're getting injured or you're getting hurt or you're going to get concussion or whatever, but you need to experience a lot of adversity when you're training, like a lot of rounds of where things aren't going your way, where you're competing, sparring fresh partners, going into bad positions, end up in bad positions, and then working your way out of it and getting used to constantly doing that over and over again. And then, you never know then when you fight, maybe you won't end up in all those bad positions. But I think that's something that you have to do really, because, and even obviously jiu-jitsu is pretty tough as well, but it's not, if you end up in a bad position in a jiu-jitsu match, you don't really have the threat of getting elbowed in the head or punched in the head or something as well. So there's that extra there's that extra threat there where you're going to be in a bad position. Someone's going to be sitting on top of you, elbowing you, and you need to figure out how you're going to get out of there without panicking and still kind of be, I suppose, be confident that you can turn the situation around and you can somehow come back. Because once you start thinking, I'm going in a bad position, even if I escape, I'm going to end up in another bad position, then it's like a downward spiral. So you need to kind of build that kind of inner strength where you think, I can get out of this. And then once I get out of it, that's going to demoralize my opponent because he thought that I couldn't get out of it. And then when I get on top, then I'm going to, win somehow.
Yeah. Yeah, I
We're
like
nearly out of time, Dennis. Do you have any final words, any parting words?
Not much. I suppose I'll just say, check out our next Bushido Fight Night, which is going to be in coming up in Thornbury Theatre at the end of July, and then check out the website. And then thanks guys for having me on as well.
Really appreciate it, man. You're
You're very welcome. No, fascinating. So we'll have this out in a couple of weeks. If you could share it on your networks, that would be awesome to help grow our little audience.
Yeah, no problem. We'll do.
Yeah, great. And thanks for all you're doing for the martial arts community, man, putting on events.
All right, no problem. Yeah, and hopefully you guys can come along and see the next show as well if you're in the area.
I'm in Fitzroy North, man. I'm a neighbor. So.
Okay, so that's really close then. Yeah, so it's pretty much so it's like basically if you just keep going up High Street, then you're there and turn slightly left.
I like it. Just give me directions to the event. You're a gentleman.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Awesome. All right. Thank you again, Dennis.
Okay, no problem, guys. Thank you.
Thanks,
really appreciate you. And see you soon. Bye.
All right, thanks a lot.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.